Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners committee meeting. Today is Monday, January the 5th. It's 9:00 a.m. We will start the meeting today with prayer by Commissioner Cole, pledge by Commissioner J.R. Williamson. Please stand.
Gracious Heavenly Father, as we come to you this morning, Lord, we just ask that you remind each one of us that we're simply stewards of that you've given us that stewardship of. Lord, keep us civil in our discussions. Lord, guide our thoughts, and we'll keep you in our prayers, Lord. Lord, keep our military safe and all those that defend us and protect us. Lord, we ask all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Commissioner Williamson. I would remind everyone at this time, if you have a cell phone or other devices, please put it in silent mode. Anyone wishing to speak today, please make sure you fill out a speaker's form here at the front desk. At this time, we will approve the agenda. And if anyone has any additions or deletions, we'll do that at this time, and I'll start with Commissioner J.R. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add two items today. One, the discussion of the District 1 Advisory Council for our Parks and Recreation that we set up, or I set up a couple months ago that you approved. I just wanted to give an update and when those meetings are going to be held. And then also, I wanted to see if we could add maybe a discussion about an amnesty for, say, 10 bags per family or something like that to no charge at the dump over the next week or 2 weeks or something for some of these that have gotten lost through the shuffle that don't have their cans, or that way they're not having to go pay money to dump at the dump maybe for a week or two.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could, we've got an update on two different items that changed over on the new year. If you'll recall, of course, you've got the ECU solid waste change of franchise in the north end of the county, and also that changed in the 1st of January, also the transportation disadvantaged coordinator that changed at the same time. So we were going to give an update on that, and I think that would be an appropriate action to take.
If we could just discuss that during the update.
Okay. All right. We will add your Parks Committee update as number 10 on the Administrative Committee, and we'll make sure that Mr. Walker addresses Amnesty Day at the dump. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, my only suggestion on the update is that we go ahead and do it first so our citizens know, what's going on.
Okay. Commissioner Rob Williamson?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lynchard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one addition under the Economic Development Committee, and I will announce that when we get to that point.
Okay. We will add number 2 under Economic Development, Commissioner Lynchard. Mr. Walker?
No other item.
Mr. Attorney?
No additions.
Mr. Blaylock? Ms. Finance? Okay. With the additions to the agenda, it is now approved. What we're going to do, Commissioner Cole, is we're going to go ahead and do the economic development, because I had under economic development number 3 now will be an ECUA discussion. So we'll do that number 3 under economic development. This time I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We, over the holidays, received some exciting news, and there will be a press release that goes out later today, but we'll go ahead and make the announcement. Santa Rosa Industrial Parks gained certification. 2 Santa Rosa County industrial parks, the Northwest Florida Industrial Park at I-10 and 160 acres of the Santa Rosa County Industrial Park on Jeff H. Road, have joined the ranks of certified industrial parks and sites in Florida. Santa Rosa began the 3-phase intensive process used to certify sites through Gulf Power's Florida First Sites Certification Program in the spring of 2013. There are only 4 certified industrial parks or sites in the state of Florida, 1 in Jacksonville, 1 in Bay County, and 2 in Santa Rosa County. Shannon Ogletree is our Economic Development Director. He's here this morning. In the release, he says the certified information helps to expedite a decision to locate in our county and can be an important factor in opening their doors faster, creating vital cost savings for a company. Certified sites are one more tool to make Santa Rosa more attractive in an extremely competitive economic development market. And in addition, Stan Connolly, President and CEO of Gulf Power, said Santa Rosa County quickly recognized and embraced the value of the Florida First Sites program. With 2 certified sites, Santa Rosa County now has a competitive edge when working to promote the area to new and growing businesses. So there's more to the release, which will be coming out a little later today, but that's exciting news, positions Santa Rosa County well as we move forward. Again, 4 certified sites in the state of Florida, 2 of which are located in Santa Rosa County. Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I forget what it was, but I know, there was a cost in certification. How much of that was picked up by Gulf Power?
Gulf Power paid half of the initial, is that right, Shannon? Come on up. Half of the initial cost of certification, the application fee. So Gulf Power was a great partner to Santa Rosa County, the other counties in the Panhandle that wanted to participate in this project. There were 16 sites submitted from public and private landowners as part of Gulf Power's Florida First Sites program. Santa Rosa County still has 1 site that is pending certification, which hopefully will come a little later this year. So we're, again, positioned well as we move forward. Commissioner Salter?
Thank you, Commissioner Lister. Exciting times for economic development. We had a good year last year. Tourism is really taking off and it's doing great. So our economy should continue to grow and prosper over the new year. Anything else, Commissioner Lister?
Mr. Chairman, on Thursday, we'll have an update by Chris Snow, who's the Senior Director of Business Development for Space Florida, but that will be taken up Thursday, nothing today.
Okay. Appreciate your report. At this time, we're going to go back to ECUA discussion that we added as number 3. Mr. Walker, would you please give us an update, and where are we, especially with container deliveries?
I can. Is currently, I believe there, according to ECUA, close of business yesterday, there were 15,573 residents that signed up, households that signed up for the service. That delivered 12,228 cans, so probably about 80%. They're working on that today. They're working to be sure that all that got in the system, they're being sure that they get the cans out. Also, that new people that sign up, those cans will be coming and get them into the system. 2 things, and Commissioner Williamson mentioned one of the contingency plans are moving forward is ECUA has committed to pick up garbage from the roadside, regardless of what kind of container it is. They will pick up, as you've noticed from their emails, they will pick up whatever containers there are, even if there are, or even just the bags. And I know that's not a perfect solution, but at least it is one way to get the garbage, if you will, into the vehicle. They've committed to do that. I do think the action that the board could take would be to waive any tipping fee at the landfill and at the J transfer station for an interim period of time, and let us determine when that is going through this transition. We just want to be sure that we take care of that. So I think that's at least a 2-prong approach in that regard. We went through the number of press releases we did. We did the robocalls. We also did the ECUA did the postcard notice, and so we went through that. I will say that the transition has been, we had the problems in the south end as we went through the similar transition. We did not do it, in retrospect, we didn't do it during the holidays, and that certainly was added an element of difficulty to it. But I will note in the south end, there were already the two vendors that were in place. Two of the vendors in place were granted separate franchises, so the transition was not as difficult. It was more densely populated, less roadways than the entire north end of the county. But I do believe this is going to be a short-term solution. It's $20 a quarter less for the homeowners, and we'll get through this particular process.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Walker, I know they've made promises, but I heard from two people this morning, one that signed up December 10th, one that signed up December 11th. The one on Muskogee Road had 4 bags out this morning, and a truck drove right by it and picked up a can that had been delivered of his neighbor's. And then on Otis Road, same situation. So, what they're telling us and what's happening, there's two different things.
I got you. Again, all I noted is if you'll make sure that Ms. Toomey has that information, we can follow up with ECUA and make sure that we get it corrected, because that's the feedback that we need to be sure that we're moving forward.
Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the amnesty or waiving of the dumping fees, can we take action on that today? That way the people that have accumulated everything since the holidays can go ahead and be dumping?
No, I'd recommend that.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the dumping fees, tipping fees for, should we say 2 weeks? Let staff decide. We're going to waive the tipping. I make a motion that we waive the tipping fees for an amount of time decided by the staff. How about that?
For individuals.
For individuals.
That'd be correct.
Okay, the motion is to waive tipping fees at both landfills until the process has been completed for residential customers only. Is that correct?
That sounds good, Mr. Chairman. You've been here a while. You know how to do it right.
Is that without objection?
Obviously, that would just impact the folks in the north area. I mean, we don't.
It would just impact those who are in the new franchise area? Okay, is that without objection?
That's without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. So let everybody know that if you're caught up in this transition and you choose to take your garbage to either one of the landfills, you can do so without paying a tipping fee. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reiterate something that Mr. Walker said. We went through this process in the south end of the county some 3.5 years ago now. We had many of the same issues. It is a transition. It's a big transition from multiple haulers to a single hauler servicing the area. In the south end of the county, we had some of the same issues, but it was an easier scenario, if you will, for the companies that were coming in, because Waste Pro and Waste Management, who service the south end, were already working there before. In the north end here, ECUA, they didn't have any customer base to build off of, so they had to start from scratch. They will get through this. We'll make certain that they get through this, and bear with us through this transition period. And your service is going to be a lot better than it was before, a lot more comprehensive, and a lot less expensive. So it's a difficult transition sometimes, but the end result will more than justify it.
Commissioner Lynchard, I appreciate that, and based on the number of emails I've gotten over the last week, I can't wait to get there. Mr. Walker, when should we expect everything to be in place?
If I recall, and Commissioner Lynchard can help in the south end, it seemed like to me it took about a month, it seemed. That just seemed going through and of course, that was two different franchises with two different operators, but it seemed like the over time it lessened, but I would say a month, but I mean, that's just, that's the only thing I have to go by is what we've done at the one other time.
It seemed like it was 30 days or so, because you have, a lot of people just aren't plugged in to what's going on, certainly what this board does. So they weren't aware necessarily that the transition was going to take place. So you've got 15,000 people that have signed up, or 15,000 households that have signed up for the service out of 30,000 households in the north end of the county. So there are still 15,000 households who haven't signed up for the service at this point, who are going to be signing up over the next 2 weeks, 30 days, and when they find out that their old provider is no longer picking up their garbage can. So it's going to take some time to work through the end of it.
And the estimate on, I believe that obviously, as this board knows, it's not mandatory, and so I believe the estimate was 75% participation, if I recall, which would put it in about the 25,000 range, which still is significant, but again, once we get them into the system, or ECUA gets them into the system, we can make sure. But please let Ms. Toomey know so we can follow up on the specific complaints. And I will say that any of the complaints that we've received, we've resolved, and so that just really helps as far as how that works.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Williamson.
I'm not so worried about the mistakes that have happened up till now. I'm wondering what's going to happen from now moving forward, because what I've heard this morning is that basically 20% of the folks have not received their cans. And in my mind, when you bid for a contract award to service a number of people, you probably should have taken into consideration what it was going to take to execute if you were awarded the contract. This morning, the email I received from ECUA said that the folks that have signed up prior to December 26th that estimate that they will have those deliveries completed by the end of the day Wednesday. I'm getting emails from folks that talk about January or December 2nd that they signed up. So that's obviously before the 26th time period. I'm very hopeful that by the time we meet again in our second set of January meetings, that we'll have good news, that they will have executed, that they will have the cans out, and that we will have kind of turned a corner. It seems like ECUA says that they're actually assisting in the delivery of cans to customers who have signed up on or after December 27th. So I'm moderately encouraged that they're doing what they can to help bring the process along, because to this point, quite frankly, I've been a little disappointed at the execution. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, I share your same concerns. I understand going through the transition is going to be a difficult time and a challenge. But as late as last week, ECUA was on local television telling everyone, if you have signed up before December the 31st, your can, if you are Tuesday, Friday, your can will be delivered by the end of workday last Friday. If you're Monday, Wednesday, your can would be delivered by the end of last Sunday. I'm getting emails and phone calls from people who said, I signed up 3 weeks ago and I still don't have a can. So we're talking about credibility here. Like Commissioner Williamson said, whatever you tell your customer, that's what you should be able to deliver. So that's the problem we have, is misinformation coming from ECUA. And we need to send them a strong message. If you tell your customers that you're going to do something, go do it. And that's where we're all getting beat up. It's not so much the transition, it's being misled on when can I get my can. So if we send ECUA any message, whatever you tell your customer, you make sure you can do it. And that'll give us, a lot of us, help. Commissioner J.R. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add, Commissioner Williamson, you said it very well, and they have been working 7 days a week as well, so they are trying, but they should have said the cans will be here by Wednesday, instead of saying the 24th and then the 26th and then the 30th, it's a moving target that keeps moving, and hopefully when we sit down Thursday, it's not have moved to the following Monday or anything like that. But I will tell you, if you do have people that call you or that email you, if you will send an email to Randy and copy Tanya on it, to Randy Rudd at ECUA, and then copy Tanya on it, and copy Roger with the address, the name, and the number, they are working ASAP to get those requests, because there will be some that fall through the cracks. There will be some. Unfortunately, it's over 3,000 right now, but it's obvious there will be a few that are going to fall through. If you'll send that to them, and I've been doing that over the weekend. I think I've sent over 250 emails so far and got a lot of good response from people saying they did get their can. It took a day or two, but they are working on it.
I appreciate that information. I was going to ask Mr. Walker, for those customers who feel like they have fallen through the cracks, what is the best phone number person to contact to try to get that straightened out? I think Commissioner Williamson just said that, but
It would be, again, my recommendation would be to send it to our environmental department, which is, Roger, give them the number. It's 981.
7135.
what was that number again?
981-7135.
Contact name?
Tanya Toomey.
Tanya Toomey. And here again, I would encourage anyone who's having problems to call Tanya at 981-7135, especially those who felt like they've signed up 2-3 weeks ago and they haven't had a response or a can yet. So give Tanya a chance to work through it and see what we can do to make this better than what it has been. Anything else on ECUA, Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everything we've done today because I don't have my can either, and I got my trash in the back of my truck. So, but I say that just to, I've heard a lot of people say, well, they can't get through to ECUA. They get put on a recorder. I did the same thing, had to sit there till we finally got through to a live operator and were able to get registered. What I don't want to happen, though, giving out this number, is that we end up doing the same thing to Tanya. She's only one person. Do we have somebody else that could help her staff a phone for the next few days? So
Yeah, the entire staff takes
Okay,
the call.
all right,
She's just the clearinghouse point person
Okay.
that is assimilating all this data.
just don't want to overwhelm her.
She's overwhelmed, but that's okay.
All right, thank you.
And just for the record, I don't have my can either. I just hope ECUA remembers that Chumuckla Highway north of 5 Point is in Santa Rosa County as well. So anything else on ECUA? Roger said he's got his. All right, we'll move on. Anyone from the public wish to address the garbage issue at this time? All right, we're going to make progress one way or the other. Bear with us. We'll move to the administrative committee. Mr. Walker, you want to do the transportation?
And it is we've got the second transition that we had January 1 was the transportation disadvantaged coordinator, and that's as this board knows, the service that's provided to at-risk people that are obviously by definition transportation disadvantaged, and it includes a number of folks anywhere from the developmentally disadvantaged to get them to their employment, as well as even dialysis and high-risk medical patients. So, as you know, the Pensacola Bay Transportation had advised the board at the end of November that they would discontinue the service. The West Florida Regional Planning went through the process on an emergency basis of soliciting proposals on that service. I believe that finally the state of Florida prevailed on Joe Paul with the Tri-County Community Council, who also serves as the Santa Rosa County Community Services Block Grant administrator, and has done a good job in Santa Rosa County, I believe, for over 10 years. And so I'd asked Mr. Paul to come in, and Sean Ward, our transportation planner, to give an update on the service and just tell him how much we appreciate him providing this service to a very needy portion of our population.
If we could have your name and address, please.
Executive Director of Tri-County Community Council, and we are the community action agency for 7 counties in Northwest Florida, including Santa Rosa. And we've had a presence here in this county for several years with a small office, helping people through the Community Service Block Grant and the LIHEAP grant, which helps people with their power bill. We do perform transportation in 3 other counties in Northwest Florida, and formerly we did the Bay transportation for 10 years on an emergency basis, just like this, and we stayed for 10 years. We were asked to come in. We did accept a contract effective January the 1st. We had to basically hire employees. We brought everybody over from Pensacola Bay that wants to come on board. We finished our interviews Friday. We did start routes Friday, which was January the 2nd, for the most, I hate to say important, but they were the life-sustaining routes of dialysis. We covered those routes with drivers from my Walden County office. Saturday, however, we did cover our routes with Santa Rosa drivers. One thing I want to do, with the board's permission, is when we take the decals and labels off the 7 vehicles that we've been granted to use, we want to relabel them with just one of our simple logos of our company, but I'd also like to label them Santa Rosa Transportation and answer the phone with that same script. That way, if we're not here in July and you do select someone else, or if we're selected to stay, we have some continuity and our clients don't have to get used to new names, new terms, a new agency. And it gives Santa Rosa County the identity for your service that you provide that you should have. I do want you to know that we're bringing the vehicles home and the employees. We've leased an office in East Milton on 90. We have to the end of the week to get in it. It's going to be a very difficult task, but if I have to paint at 9, I'm going to be in there trying to get that ready. We have to get our phone service in, internet, office furniture, get the vehicles moved, and hopefully by the first of next week, we will have that office up and going, taking phone calls there instead of Pensacola where it is now. Again, I think as commissioners, and I respect your positions and the hard job you have, but when you also look at employment, we're getting these people back home. You're getting your jobs back over here. You're going to get those 7 vehicles back over here, and you're going to start seeing a presence on 90 and on 98 and 89 and 87 of these highways coming to and fro, not to just medical appointments, but we want to expand and spend the grants for job searches, employment, and some other activities that probably you had not had the opportunity to do before. If Mr. Walker and Sean will let you know, there has been some unspent money in prior years, and we want to spend that money. To spend it, we will provide more services to your residents. I'll be glad to ask any specific questions, or you can channel them through Sean, but we are up and going, and we're going to try to do you a very good job. Again, we did start brief Friday with just a few runners. Saturday, a few more. Today, a few more. By the end of the week, I can't say that we're going to be back to 100%. It's based on the number of vehicles and drivers, but hopefully we'll be back to full capacity probably within a week or 2.
Let me say this before any of the other commissioners. We appreciate y'all stepping up and taking on that responsibility, and we look forward to working with you. Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Much the same. I appreciate it's a much-needed service for our citizens in the county, and I really like your name of your idea of the naming of it, so the continuity stays there. And with this kind of attitude, I don't know if I'd have a hard time keeping you after January or after July, but we'll see what happens.
And not to interrupt, but we went in Bay County on an emergency basis when that provider pulled out, and we didn't think we'd be there for 6 months, and they talked us into staying for 10 years. So, again, we're here to serve y'all.
Mr. Walker, I don't know if there's any action we need to take on Thursday on putting the name on the vehicles, but I would ask you and Sean to
We'll do that.
let us know what we need to do. Yes, sir. Scott, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir. Scott Kemp,
Name and address.
5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32563. Great idea here. I've been talking to Mr. Gourmillion's staff on this as it came out in the agenda back 1st of December, looking at some of the data. And one of the things that I was really concerned with as far as the transportation issue was the majority of the transports, 16,000 if I recollect the number right, fell into a non-ill, nothing category other than they didn't have a car, it sounded like. It wasn't necessarily to go to and from medical services, from what I understood and from the information that I received. Could be wrong on that because there's, the data is wide and varied depending on where you look. But I would ask the committee here to look into that. And I know this is going to be a big budget year for us. We're going to be looking at every opportunity, as where this gentleman says we're wanting to expand the effort. This is a state mandated effort. I think for those folks that are ill that don't have the transportation, I get it, But if we don't want to get in the habit of providing transportation for free for, people just to go to the grocery, whatever else. And like I say, I'm not starting to list a lot of data, but of all the different categories, like I say, the majority definitely was this, bottom category that didn't relate. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Sean, if you would, could you fill us in, just go over where these fundings come from so our citizens know?
These individuals do qualify for the service based on the definition defined by the state of Florida and state statutes of transportation disadvantaged. There is the TD Commission for the state of Florida that pays for these trips. None of the county does not pay for any of these services as that is qualified.
And so, as the gentleman said, there's funding that's still there. He's talking about that funding, not anything from Santa Rosa County taxpayers.
That's correct, yes, sir. What Mr. Joel Paul was referencing, in the rural areas of the county, every year the county has the option to basically to submit applications to FDOT, and this is what we call the Section 5311 funding. And under that area, we do currently have funding that is available for the rural residents, basically the areas north of Willard Norris, far east Milton, and some of the other areas within the county, and they do require a 50% match. So we've been working with, trying to get the Rural Healthcare Network on board. The Santa Rosa ARC is another group that benefits from this and pays for that, and they match that 50%, and that we submit these applications to. So, yes, sir.
And also, I'd be amiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the transportation program that we have in place for our veterans. It's not county connected. It has nothing to do with government. There's a group called the Santa Rosa Veterans Memorial Foundation Vets to VA Clinic. Any veteran who qualifies for free transportation who needs to get from any place in Santa Rosa County over to the Veterans Clinic in Pensacola, we'll provide that transportation. We being not the county, but our Veterans Foundation. So if you know of any veterans who are basically disabled, don't have means of transportation, make sure they contact our Veterans Memorial Foundation. Anything else on transportation, Mr. Walker? Okay. Appreciate the update. We'll move into the Administrative Committee. Discussion of legislative priority list for 2015 legislative session. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is the list that we had discussed, or the board had discussed at the meeting in December, and this is our run-up on that. And to remind the board, I believe the legislative delegation will meet in this room. I believe it's 5:30 a week from Thursday. I believe it is. I believe it's the 15th. Which would be Thursday evening, and this will be presented to them, or whatever the board approves is coming Thursday will be sent to them, and that included in their agenda. Also in your backup is some information that Commissioner Rob Williamson had presented, outlining his thoughts on that, and a number of the projects, as you see, are included. So we just need the board to kind of add to whatever else you'd like us to see added.
Here again, the list is in our backup material. Any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that I'm fine with the legislative priorities that have been presented. Mine were merely additional comments and some suggestions as we were looking at crafting this document. I realize that we can engage the lobbyist at any time, but we all know that in those last 3 days of the session when the budget is being finalized, it's good for folks that are representing us to have some general knowledge of all of the areas of interest that we have, because you never know when funding is going to drop in one or maybe any of these areas. So I felt it was good for them to have knowledge of things like the community access road, like a Navarre Park renovation project, or some of the other ones that were already provided on the list. So that was the reason why I brought those comments forward. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Walker, would you just, for the public, would you just give us a highlight of each one of those major requests? For example, the Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners request the Florida legislature to appropriate at least $45 million to the VMFAP, whatever that means, in 2015, 2016 to fund the Navarre project and all projects estimated at ranking higher in the FDEP assessments. The past 5 years of appropriations have averaged less than $30 million. Just give us a summary of each one of those, please.
I mean, different from what you just did on that one. I mean, and obviously this is just to preserve. I believe it's about $10 million. I request for the state portion of the beach renourishment. It's incredibly important, and Commissioner Williamson is correct. You really have to ride herd on these to make sure that your projects remain in there, and that certainly makes sense. The second request is the support of the Whiting Aviation Park. As the board will recall, when we were interviewing the lobbying advocacy firms in early December, one of the things the board noted was the success that we had in the mid-2000s, I believe 2006, 2007. There were a couple of sessions that it took to receive some funding for the phased development of the Whiting Aviation Park, and this is going to be a huge economic benefit, we think, to the county, the region, and even the state. It had received appropriation in that time frame that was subsequently vetoed by then Governor Christ. Governor Scott's priorities are jobs and is economic development. So we believe this aligns well with that, and we're asking for an $8.8 million non-recurring special appropriation for the Phase 1 and partial Phase 2 to get us started, to get moving on that particular project. Shannon can speak to the bonus refund guidelines for the brownfield. This is I believe it's an exemption that the state had previously approved. It has lapsed, and just asked that it would be reinstated. Again, it's an economic development tool as far as incentives that locating industry would be able to take advantage of. And again, if the board will recall, those are typically based on jobs that are created and that in retrospective. In other words, they're created. They don't count the jobs until they've actually been created and documented. And then we noted the Santa Rosa Agriplex project. This is an item that Kyle Holly had been working on that actually, as it notes in the backup material, this particular project is for, I guess, a second phase of the Agriplex, which currently has the horse arena named for Ms. H in the northern part of the East Milton Park. This would be the phase 2 that would receive funding from the Department of Agriculture, and it's in their system. This is just asking and it's been approved by the Department of Agriculture, just asking that the legislature would fund it in other similarly ranked projects.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole?
I appreciate the board keeping this on there as a priority. Kyle Hawley's worked very diligently at getting this ranking moved up to where it's at now. And not only will this building be the second phase of the Agriplex, but long-term, we have plans for that building to also be hardened for storm shelter facilities also. So it's using our tax dollars to the best of their ability to have multi-use purposes out of these dollars.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Commissioner J.R. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One, I think we should probably look at seeing how the state defines what a small county is. Right now, it's 150,000. I mean, it would be worth the shot for us to look as far as the SCOP program goes, where we could fall into that funding of the 75-25, see if maybe they would bump that to 165, 175. I know there's going to be other counties affected. It may not ever happen, but it would be worth looking at. I talked to Representative Broxson about that. He said for us to get with his staff and they would see, if that could happen. But I think that would be very beneficial to the county, because right now we lose a 75-25 state match on some of our road projects, which is going to, it's been something we've counted on a lot in the past. And then also, one thing I don't see anything about the courthouse. In Washington County, they got $6 or $8 million for a new courthouse. I know we couldn't fund our whole courthouse, but it may be the difference in a year's worth of a 1-cent sales tax that may be the difference in that thing passing. All they can say is no. So I think that ask to appropriation for our courthouse will be very appropriate. That's an issue that's not going away in the county. It's one of the top issues that we've had, and it's going to be here until we get a new courthouse.
My only thing about the Washington County, again, Washington County is a fiscally constrained county. They're at 10 mills. They also have a sales tax for operations. So they don't have any other funding sources. I'm afraid the legislature will tell us we've got other funding sources that are available. But certainly we can try to craft something for the list and include it.
I understand that. I just know that I'm going to ask them, and I'm not going to just stop when they say no the first time. I'm going to let them tell me no 10 or 12 times before I stop asking. Then I'm probably going to keep asking for some of these things if it's the difference in our county.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I agree, especially on the what is the definition of a small county, and let's try to pursue that and see if we can't get something changed. Ask for the courthouse. All they can do is say no, and so I agree. Add those two. Mr. Walker, we're going to add those two? Okay. Yes, sir. Anyone from the public? Name and address, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. Tim Cohane, 1466 Homeport Drive, Navarre Beach, Florida. As most of you know, I'm president of the Navarre Beach Leaseholders and Renters Association. Mr. Walker, I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to clarify I heard you correctly, that on the legislative priority list that we are requesting money for beach renourishment. I think I heard you say $10 million. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly.
That's correct, and that's the amount that we would qualify in the Beach and Coastal Systems grant program or allocation. But the legislature has to fund that program.
I understand.
Okay.
I do. Now, is that, and that's separate from any Restore Council request, correct?
Yes, this will be going through the legislative process this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public before we move on? With the addition of Commissioner J.O. Williamson asked funding for a courthouse and reevaluate the scope population program. I would move the legislative priority list to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 2, discussion of District 4 Improvement Plan Survey. Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No action on this item. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of the fact that we're going to be presenting a District 4 specific survey, and to open it up if you had any questions related to the survey.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
Just real quick,
Commissioner Cole.
you intend to include the Heart of Navarre entire process, maybe revisit that?
It wasn't part of this survey, and I do have, Joy, I believe, will be sending out, the survey will go out later today, and we'll email you a copy of that ahead of time. It's a very brief 4-question survey, and basically this survey was put together, we know we went through the recent incorporation effort, and a lot of improvements and concerns have been voiced. What we tried to do was, I had a small focus group of around 12 residents, and we tried to put together what the most common improvements that folks in the District 4 area would be looking for, and put those on the survey with the intent of getting folks to select their top 5 highest priority items and labeling those from most important to least important, 1 through 5, just to help me have a jumping off point or an area to focus in on. So areas that I'm sure you've heard of, we have beach renourishment, we have beautification efforts, we might have traffic congestion, parks, improved youth development programs. We basically have about, I think, 12, 13 items on the list.
Okay. And I brought that up because over the last year I've heard, the Heart and Bar program process was totally citizen-driven, a lot of time and effort put into that. But over the last year I've heard about, I've heard a lot of reversals on opinions on that. So it may just be something you want to investigate. So.
And the idea behind this, it's a good point. The Navarre Town Center Plan was a comprehensive community-based project, and the idea behind this improvement survey is that we would take the results of this and use it toward crafting an overall District 4 improvement plan. And I'm sure that the Navarre Town Center and whether or not we decide to reinvigorate that will definitely be a part of the conversation.
Anything else, Commissioner Williamson?
No, Mr. Chairman. Once again, there's no action for this for Thursday.
Yeah, just information only, so we will acknowledge that. We will move on to number 3, discussion of following Restore Act issues. Mr. Walker.
Chairman, this is a matter that Commissioner Rob Williamson asked be placed on the agenda, and it really kind of is relative to the restore processes. We're going through the process, and the idea is a good idea. We need to start bolstering our staff in our in-house resources, and then over time would be review of the Atkins contract as far as the restore consultant. It just needs to be a matter of time. We do need to improve our grants coordinator staff as far as just more people. We've got really about 1.5 slots in there, and so we just need to move forward with that in some form or fashion, which I recognize. I'm sure Mr. Williams wants to speak to it.
Commissioner Lynchard? Commissioner Williamson?
Thank
Rob
you,
Williamson?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I wanted to have these items put on the agenda. 1, to add a full-time or designate a full-time restore coordinator position, add a additional grant writer for Santa Rosa County, and then look at if those are approved by fellow board members. That's a direction we think that we should take. Then obviously we don't want to have 2 people doing the same job, so we would then look at reallocating or saving the funding that we're currently using for the restore consultant by ending that agreement. Now, I wanted to just provide a couple of points as to, why am I bringing this forward and why am I making this recommendation at this time? And it's because I feel we're at a natural transition point in the restore process. We've laid a good foundation, and that's due in large part because of, I see Jeff Helms is here today, and because of the consultant and the hard work of the Atkins team and staff and the Restore Council and certainly Commissioner Lynchard and his leadership. And we've laid a foundation of having the categories and having the criteria and how these projects are going to be scored. But now we're moving from that foundation process to, within 60 days' time, we're going to start actually vetting actual projects that could ultimately result in funding. And my concern is that the current workload for our grants director and special projects coordinator, we're very blessed to have someone as talented as Sheila Harris on our team, but I feel that the workload that she has is extraordinary, especially as we start vetting projects that are going to ultimately receive funding. So it's the workload that I feel is one of the main reasons to bring this forward now. I feel that it's important to have somebody that is a full-time restore coordinator, that all project submittals, they will be directing all of those efforts from a county staff perspective. I'm wondering what opportunities, grant opportunities, we'll be missing out on if we don't add an additional grant writer. We have local mitigation strategy. We have, with stormwater related grant opportunities. We have military encroachment grant funding, parks and recreation grant funding, economic development, having those shelf-ready projects. And with the amount of time that our current coordinator is spending as the point person for Restore, I feel like we could be missing out on some opportunities there. And that brings me to the Restore consultant's role. First of all, I want to make sure that you understand that me asking to end the agreement with Atkins has nothing to do with performance. They have delivered on what they were asked to do, and they've been compensated fairly for their services. Once again, I just feel like this is a time that we need to be reviewing this arrangement, and I don't want to add additional expense to the county without looking at some possible savings. I feel like, finally, that I'll end with this and then open it up, that for us to return the best possible value to the citizens of Santa Rosa County, that's why I'm making these recommendations right now. I believe it's the best allocation of resources, and I just thought it was a good point in the process to have this discussion. So I'll hold off on any type of motion until obviously the other commissioners are going to want to weigh in on this.
Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good points of discussion, and there are things that we certainly need to think about. Hunter and I have talked about Sheila's workload for a while. She does a great job. She manages, she spins so many plates and keeps so many balls in the air at one time. It's amazing. So I think that at some point, getting her assistance is definitely something that we need to do. I don't think that's mutually exclusive with either having a Restore Act coordinator or a consultant on board. Restore Act coordinator, Sheila would be the natural fit to move in that position because she's been really the point of contact for the county for 2+ years right now. She knows the Restore Act as well as anybody. That being said, I mean, I'm sure that there's always room to bring somebody in to assist her with the other things that she currently does, all of the grants. We've got the Holly by the Sea stormwater management plan that's going to be delivered fairly soon. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of projects out of that somebody's going to have to start working. There are going to be a lot of potentially grant-eligible projects that come out of that master plan. When it comes to the consultant, we selected Atkins as our consultant for the subject matter expertise that they could bring to the table, as well as the local ties to the area that they had, and therefore local knowledge about projects and ideas that might ultimately be implemented as part of Restore. And we're 2 years into this process, 2 years of work planning, 2 years of developing a process to accept and review applications for what I think will have a generational impact, not just on Santa Rosa County, but on the Panhandle and on the Gulf Coast as a whole. After 2 years of preparation, we're now 6 days away from opening up the first application for funding for the direct component of the Restore funds. To terminate our contract with a consultant that's gotten us to this point makes no sense to me. I don't know why we're considering doing that, actually. Atkins has done a remarkable job for Santa Rosa. They've been with us since before day one. Back before the Restore Act was even a law, when the language was still being drafted, Jeff Helms was involved. He was instrumental in getting some of the provisions inserted in the Restore Act and saving at the conference table when we were fighting against the state to preserve the direct component for the counties in the state of Florida. So Atkins committed to us not to go after other consulting positions with other counties, and they met that commitment. They're dedicated to Santa Rosa County. The institutional knowledge that they have can't easily be replaced. I don't know who you would hire as a Restore coordinator to bring to bear what they have, the resources that they have. And we need to complete this first step, which is developing our multi-year implementation plan for the Transocean funding. At that point, it will be time, I believe, to review the process and make a decision with regard to our consultant. Do we need to have them engaged for the next round? Because Transocean is the first bite at the apple. You know, it's a trial run, albeit a very valuable one, to the dollars that are ultimately going to flow from BP's portion of Restore. You know, we have $4.3 million coming directly to Santa Rosa County. That's our direct component, the money that the local Restore Council will use to plug into our multi-year implementation plan. So that's $4.2 million. When it comes to BP's portion of Restore, we're looking at $20 to $70 million. So the Transocean is a great trial run for us. And then at that point, I think that'd be a natural time to consider bringing on a full-time Restore coordinator or moving Sheila into that position, revisiting our consultant's role. We start accepting applications in 6 days. I think it would send the wrong signal to make any changes now. Atkins has done everything we've asked of them to this point. They meet with our county administrator and staff and their technical staff every month to chart a course for the next 30 days. They've contracted with the Haas Center for Economic Development Analysis. They have the environmental scientists and other subject matter experts on staff that we don't have in-house. We're not like Escambia where they have the engineering department that can support this effort in-house. So I think it'd be disruptive to the process to make any changes right now. I think it's a good talking point. I think we need to wait until we get our multi-year implementation plan approved to consider changing the role of our consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. I totally agree with you, Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I agree. I'd like to see us do something, I like Commissioner Lynchard's suggestion, where we place Ms. Harris in the position of Restore Act coordinator and head of that department, bringing somebody in that can run the show, you know, that's a routine year after year grant writing. And I agree with your comments on Atkins as far as their job.
And it is, you know, we talk about multi-year implementation plan, and it is, I think we will have to at some point have an in-house Restore Act coordinator, because Restore is not going to be over 6 months from now or 12 months from now. You know, depending on the way any potential settlement or payout from BP is structured, the board sitting here 10 years from now could be making decisions regarding Restore. So it's going to be a long-term process. And we're still waiting to really complete that first phase, which is getting our multi-year implementation plan put together to handle the Transocean funds.
Commissioner J.O. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a whole lot to add, except for I agree with the stability and the consistency. I mean, that was the whole reason that the 2 appointments my father made to that board, I kept them because this is a process. You need people that have been there since the very beginning. I did want to add, Sheila's not going to be able to leave the room today without going through the double doors because her head's going to be too big, but she does so well for our county, and she does 3 people's work, so I just wanted to brag on her. And I think the need in the future, there would be a need to bring in somebody else to help with grants because there are a lot of grants out there we can be getting. She's only one person, and she really does the work of 3. But right now, I think consistency and stability is what we need when it comes to restore and securing those funds.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Rob Williamson.
thank you for the comments. Once again, I wanted to reiterate that my recommendation was in no way related to performance. I'm curious what role the consultant is going to have moving forward as we do transition into vetting projects. The reason for naming a restore coordinator, if we're entertaining doing that at some point in the future, my question would be, why wait? I look at it as a positive move. I don't look at it as a disruptive move or sending the wrong signal. I actually look at it as sending a positive signal that we place so much importance on the fact that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we want to make sure does make a generational impact. Those were my comments at the very first Restore Council that I participated in. And I do agree with consistency. My recommendation was going to be that we go ahead and work through to get the multi-year implementation plan set, which should be sometime, I believe, and I imagine in March. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but my concern is that my concern would also be that Atkins, if they participate in the vetting of projects, then that will leave them out of being able to support any Santa Rosa County generated projects, which brings me to another important point for wanting to have not only a restore coordinator, but an additional grant writer, regardless of the decision we make on the consultant. And that's, what is this board's policy on restore projects that are brought forward from Santa Rosa County government? Internal Santa Rosa County government related projects, and how would these projects be prioritized? Who determines, how we're going to allocate staff time toward projects that are brought forward? Projects that are brought forth by outside entities that'll be vetted by our technical scoring team, that's one thing, but one of the main reasons for also wanting to have that project or that restore coordinator role is to make sure that we have somebody that's directing internally all of the efforts of internally submitted projects for Santa Rosa County. So once again, I would just put forward that I think that the initial deliverables that the consultant was hired for have been met, and that at minimum we should look at it, maybe this is a Restore Council thing or a board thing, that we look at tweaking as we move through this process what they're going to be providing. Because at this point, the consultant has been very responsible with what they've been billing the county. Now, they could bill up to $12,000 a month, and I believe in the 13-month period they've been averaging $8,500 a month. So they're not just trying to go for the maximum every month. Atkins is a good partner with this county, has been for a while, as Commissioner Lynchard mentioned. My concern is the amount of funding that we're going to spend on the consultant. If we're going to designate a restore coordinator, we see value in that position. When that happens, we are basically paying 2 people to do the same job. I mean, once we get to projects that are coming in, relationship building is obviously important, but that's why we have commissioners to go to consortium meetings and do that relationship building. But my points are out there, and I guess we'll listen to the public comment and then go from there.
All right. Any other comments by the commissioners? Y'all want to address this issue? Name and address, Wallace.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I remember a while back when Mr. Andrews was hired as county attorney. At that point, you had 3 legal assistance to the county attorney, and Ms. Taylor, I think, was moved to the grants department. Is she able to perform in a grant writing capacity? That now that you're saying we should hire another grants writer?
Is one of the roles that Ms. Taylor had taken on was the Healthcare Responsibility Act coordination work that had been moved into the county attorney's office from the grants. When Mr. Andrews came with Ms. Pitts, we transferred her to the back to the grants department. But that probably takes about 65 to 70% of her time. That's responsibility that we have when the board did not have somebody looking after that directly, as it cost us statutorily, I think, about $650,000 a year that we're responsible for. Currently, we spend about $150,000 to $200,000. And again, that's a state mandate, but you need somebody working that every day. So she is able to do some of the what I'd call administrative, clerical type work for the grants writer, and that's been helpful. I think that overall you're going to need somebody with a college degree, as Ms. Taylor has, to do the grants writing and to bolster that particular position. But probably about, again, going back to remind you, about 30% of her time is probably devoted to grants and help there.
Okay, and I do agree with putting Sheila Harris in a more noticeable position as far as restore. I know I come to a lot of these meetings, and I think she does a great job. She's probably very knowledgeable about restore. Maybe for a period of time she can work with Mr. Helms and Atkins, and with coordinated efforts, really have a very clear understanding of how everything works. I know Mr. Helms has been here a lot speaking. I've enjoyed what he has brought to the board. I think it might be a good idea to keep them on for a while as you go through this transition, as more of the important projects are going to be brought forward. And if you need to hire another grants writer, I think that's a great idea. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Laurie Gallup, 1869 Flamingo Lane in Navarre. I support Commissioner Rob Williamson's suggestions that he has made here. We definitely need to have a Restore Act coordinator, and we need to have one sooner rather than later. Because we down in the Navarre area, we're working on restore projects, and we need some help down there because we're all out on our own really with it. And so it would be good if we had some staff members that could help us. Also, we need to have another grant writer, at least one, possibly two, because we're missing out on so many grant opportunities, and these positions would pay for themselves. So go ahead and do what it takes to get some more grant writers in here, because we're in a time right now where it's vitally important that we get in on these grants that are possible with the Restore Act. I also believe it's a good idea to review what we're doing with Atkins, and then also see if there might not be a better way that we can coordinate what we're doing to make the best use of this Restore Act money that's coming our way. That doesn't hurt anything to review it and see if there might not be a better way that we can put things together to help everybody, and especially us down on the south end who are actually impacted by the BP oil spill. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, Tim Cohane, 1466 Homeport Drive, Navarre Beach, Florida. I also would like to support Mr. Williamson's suggestion about a coordinator. I think the process itself is probably so complex that we would be missing out on some opportunities if we didn't have someone coordinating all these efforts. The other thing I wanted to say was, as we vet programs as this money becomes available, Everyone in the room should remember how we got here in the first place. It was because of the oil spill, and the oil spill affected the beaches. And I think the majority of the money that we get needs to go back to restore those beaches, because that's what happened. It affected the economy down there, and it affected the ecosystems down there, and that's where I think the majority of the money should go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Woodmont Street, Navarre, Florida. I agree with Mr. Williamson. I think now that we have a good commissioner down there that's looking out for the best interests of the members of the South End, we need to follow his lead and get some full-time people here, because once the money comes, it's here, and we don't have the people prepared to write the grants, then it's too late once the money gets here. I support him and think that you should follow his lead and go on and hire the individuals to write the grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this, Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lynchard or even Jeff Helms could give me the definition. I see no difference in a Restore Act coordinator and a Restore Act consulting service. I've listened to Jeff several times on the different buckets of money, how one can be used in place of another, how projects need to be long-term and effective. I guess maybe I'm missing something here. So is there a definition difference in the two? I don't see it.
Commissioner Lynchard first.
I think the coordinator position is, Sheila has been our de facto coordinator, and that's dealing not just with the local component that's going to come to Santa Rosa County, but that's dealing with buckets 2, buckets 3, which is the money that comes to the state and then gets distributed. The consortium develops a plan, and then that's also the money that goes to the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Foundation, which is comprised of governor's appointees from all of the 5 Gulf Coast states, along with representatives from 6, I believe, federal agencies. So the Restore Act coordinator would serve as a clearinghouse for all of that information, along with NERDA, along with NIFWIF, and that's really what Sheila has been doing. I mean, she's engaged in all of that. Jeff, the consultant, has really been tasked with helping us develop our multi-year implementation plan. That's their deliverable, is that multi-year implementation plan. That's going to come probably it probably will be finalized in the September, October time frame, because it has to come to the local Restore Council, then it has to go to the board, then there's a 45-day period of public comment, then it has to be sent to Treasury, and Treasury has to approve our multi-year implementation plan. So really, we're looking towards fall for approval of our multi-year implementation plan. That's the role of the consultant. Now, in addition to developing that multi-year implementation plan, Jeff has been involved in consortium issues, Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Task Force issues, and NERDA and NIFWIF, just because that's what he has an interest in, and he's been working on those separate issues for the county as well. So the coordinator position, I think, is a sort of a traffic cop, and then the consultant really is keyed in on our multi-year implementation plan. So right now, Sheila has been our acting Restore Act coordinator, if you will. At some point, when our multi-year implementation plan is approved, and we do have 5, 10, 15, 20 different projects in the hopper, each of those projects is administered as a grant, goes up to, is administered as a grant, so each of those projects is going to be a federal grant. even though it's direct component money. It's money that comes directly to Santa Rosa County. It comes to the county through the grant process. So at that point, the increase on Sheila's workload would be exponential. So we absolutely, I think, need someone to backfill the other roles that she does now, assuming that she would want to move into that position and concentrate on Restore. Then we would definitely need assistance in the grant writing department. Again, because there are so many grants out there that we pursue on an annual basis, and so many more that I think we're going to have to start going after. When we get the stormwater study done, our SCOP funding has dried up, so we're going to have to be very diligent in going after grant funding for local projects. So I think, whether we do it now or do it soon, I think we do need to bring some help into that department. Sheila, she has been doing it for a number of years. She would be perfect to train somebody, get them schooled up in what works for Santa Rosa County, the grants we go after, and then transition into a more focused role on Restore.
Commissioner Rob Williams.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to say how encouraged I am about the opportunity to have an open discussion about things that are this important to the county, and it's been good commentary. Obviously, it seems like you consider this a different transition point. You consider the end of the multi-year transition, or the multi-year implementation plan would be a better transition point. And I'm certainly agreeable to that. I think we could both make the argument either way on that. It is true that all of these are going to be administered in the form of a grant. In answer to Commissioner Cole's question, and piggybacking off what Commissioner Lyncher just said, since they're issued in the form of a grant, that grant, if we just stick with one point of contact or one point person to implement these federal grants, it would be an extraordinary workload. There are basically 4 funding silos of general infrastructure, environment, economic development, and tourism. And you're going to have grants that are going to need to be submitted, monitored, developed throughout this process. And you're looking at 4.4 million in this first round. After that, it could be upwards to 50 million. So you're asking one person to develop and monitor $50 million in grant projects. That's pretty extraordinary. And once again, I go back to, if we do that, as things continue to ramp up, now we're asking Sheila to meet with a technical scoring team as projects start coming in. And I'm wondering what opportunities we are going to be missing, and we can't afford to miss any right now. Funding is critical. So my intent is not to grow the size of government. I want to be very clear with that. I'm making that recommendation that we phase out and sometime in the future, if it's in the fall, if I'm hearing Commissioner Lyncher correctly, after the multi-year implementation plan is complete, that's when we would look at what the ongoing role of the Restore consultant would be. And at that point, maybe it makes more sense to make changes to the consulting agreement at that time. But in between now and that time, I feel it's pretty critical that we have an additional grant writer in place.
Mr. Chairman, if you could just let us work on that. I mean, we hear
Just
what
a minute,
you're
Mr. Walker.
saying.
Commissioner Cole, and I'm going to make a recommendation.
Just clarification. I'm 100% on board with, the addition. I can see that. We all know that a grant writer, a lobbyist, people like that, they cost us money, but they basically bring home the bacon. They pay double, triple, sometimes a lot more than that than their salary. So I don't have a problem with that. It's just perhaps the first line should be establish Restore Act grant coordinator position. Because when I look at this, it looks like one would replace the other. That's all I'm saying. And I don't see right now doing anything with the consulting agreement, reviewing it certainly at any time we can review it. get more up to date on it, but that's just for clarification.
Yeah, let us come back, Mr.
Let
Chairman.
me make a final comment. I think this is great discussion. It's making us start to think about 2015, things we need to have in place. I've always depended on the county administrator to handle personnel issues and let us know when positions are needed, and I'm going to ask him to do that again. With the conversation you've heard today, as far as the Restore Act coordinator position, hiring another grant writer, I'm very happy with Atkins. I think it's very premature to try to do anything other than that, but I would like for the county administrator to review the personnel that will be needed to take Restore forward. Commissioner Williamson, you okay with that?
Yeah, and I want to let the board know that I first went to the county administrator to talk to him about this, because I agree with you that, that I didn't want to be playing around in his sandbox, but I understand that sometimes it may be difficult in this budget environment to ask for those additions, and I wanted to kind of lay out what the plan would be. If I'm hearing the will of the board that it would be waiting till Thursday before any motions are brought forward, or because I'm certainly willing to craft at least 2 separate motions. I agree with the consultant decision that we will look at, what, if any, changes to the consulting agreement with the Restore consultant would happen after the implementation of the multi-year implementation plan. I'm fine with that, but there are 2 other items there. One would be the motion to designate a full-time Restore coordinator based on obviously the county administrator's review, and then the second would be to hire an introductory grant writer position, which the average salary is, I'll leave that off for now, but
Let's do this, if everybody's in agreement. Here again, premature to be talking about Restore Act consultant. I think most of us are very happy with that. What I would like to see the county administrator do to reevaluate the needs within the Restore Act department, grant writing department, and then let him come back and make a recommendation to us.
And if I could do that in 2 weeks, I'm certainly not going to have anything by Thursday responsive to any kind of motion. I think that let us come back and have you a plan.
How about January the 28th workshop?
Again, that workshop's going to be pretty full anyway. My recommendation is going to be, I think, and I certainly can, but I was just going to move forward in the 2 weeks just to keep it moving.
Bring us back something in a timely manner.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Moving on to number 4, discussion of proposals for providing background screening of volunteers in county parks and recreational facilities. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is a memo from me. Since 2006, the board implemented a program of screening really any volunteer that is around young people in our programmed parks. We work in conjunction with the 5, I believe it is, sports associations that provide the programming, and we've done that since 2006. We had solicited and had received proposal from a firm that had done that through the years. We had worked out a process as Ms. Simmons and the county attorney were the only 2 people that were privy to that information, and as we went through dealing with the various volunteers. State statute changed. It became more stringent, I believe, the requirements for the background checks, understandably so, have increased, and we had to go out for proposals to be responsive to that. I believe the state statute requires, I believe it's just the coaches, the assistant coaches, and the referees are called out in state statute. If you were a team mom, I think we made them go through a background check. So just to err on the side of caution, we have received a proposal for those services. We had been able, previously, we were able to conduct those, I believe it was every 3 years. Now the state statute requires an annual screening. So as you see the cost that I've outlined, that's primarily going to hit the sports associations, and we will be working with them to see how they can work those costs, because it's going to be a substantial, it's substantially more than they've been used to. So but the board has always undertaken the responsibility to make sure there was a program, to administer the program, and that way we could ensure that there was a consistent volunteer check program in place. So our recommendation for the Thursday agenda would be to accept the proposal, and I'd have to look at the firm that was responsive to the providing the $7 per screening requirement. Is it going out by the county attorney and Ms. Simmons had put together?
Any discussion by the board, Commissioner Lynchard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it, are you figuring that this cost will be passed along to the sports associations at $7 per person per year, or are you asking for us to come up with a way to fund that $20,000 overage?
The sports associations had been picking up that cost. We were passing that along to the sports associations. We may have to see if we can put together, we'll need to work with them and see if we can put together some kind of proposal to come back to you on supplementing that or transitioning in. I believe when we did it in 2006, the board approved, the board paid for the first year of the screenings because of the cost, and it was an imposition that we placed on them, actually ahead of state statute, and let us come back to you with a plan. But the action specifically on Thursday will be to initiate a contract, I believe it is, with the responsive proposal.
That's correct. We're making sure that that the lowest bidder meets the requirements of the statute, which apparently it does.
Yeah. We'll wait to see what you come back with. We have 2,850 people who volunteer hours and hours and hours of their time to coach, everybody from 4-year-old soccer all the way up through high school. So if it comes down to it, it's $20,000 a year. If that's divided equally among 5 districts, you're looking at $4,000 per year out of our rec fund. So I'd hate for this to be an impediment to anyone volunteering as a coach or otherwise out there at the parks.
Mr. Chairman.
I agree with you, Commissioner Lynchard. Commissioner Cole.
I'd agree also to that, but I do have a problem with the low bidder, and it's just in the language. It says verify standard plus monthly screen usage each, and then monthly $7. And it just, per applicant, something like that, but that monthly's kind of got me thrown a little bit there.
We're working on the contract. It's an annual.
I figured it was, but it just, the verbiage there just don't look, $7 monthly is a whole lot more than the next guy lower, so.
That's correct.
Commissioner J.O. Williamson? No comment?
Just that I agree 100% with Lane. That'd be the best $4,000 that we could spend out of our out of my park and recreation funds to make sure that the children are safe in the county. So, yeah.
Okay. Scott.
Scott Kemp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32563. First off, yes, I totally agree that, the county should flip this bill. I know as the educators in the county and the state, the school board, they have to do the same thing. I know my wife she works for the school system, get her fingerprints taken down at the local FedEx, UPS store, whatever, and get it ran. We, the taxpayers, pay for that. I could see us doing the same thing. Like you say, best money we ever spent. My only suggestion is let's scrub this list of 2,800 and make sure that those are current, and that number is current, because the overall quantity might drive a price too. You might be able to look for the deal with each of the vendors. Just a thought. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Scott. This time, we're going to move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. It is 10:30. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 10:40. It is 10:40. We will get started. Back with our meeting. We are on number 5, discussion of 2014-2015 Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application cycle. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is the email to me from Ms. Harris regarding the 2015 Land and Water Conservation grant cycle, which I believe is due the 27th. And she had just sent out some information to the board. We had forwarded this out to solicit any particular projects that she had. Included in her background were the backup information, were the criteria, the scoring, and also potential projects. So, Ms. Harris, do you want to speak to this, or if the board has any particular projects?
Any comments by the board? Mr. Rob Williamson.
Well, I had initially talked to Ms. Harris and Tammy Simmons about looking at the Holly Park project or the Navarre Park project, and I think that maybe either one of those could work with this grant, but I'll let Sheila talk to that.
Sheila, would you come forward, please?
Thank you. Yes, the reason I had provided the scoring considerations to you all is just wanted to express the importance of looking at these scoring considerations. I can put in a grant application for any park that you would like. However, it may not score well, and that's not depending on anything that I can do. Rather, it's what they tell you scores well. So, for instance, properties that are on the water, we're going to score higher than a park that's not. Those that have historical considerations are going to score better than those that are not. So certainly Tammy and I can look at the various needs related to parks. We have a listing here of potential projects that each of the commissioners have presented to her throughout the years. But what I need to know from you all today is, as Commissioner Rob Williamson has done, he's expressed his desire to see Holly Ballpark move forward. If any of you have any other projects that you're also interested in Tammy and I looking at, that you're willing to meet the match requirement on, I can come back on Thursday and let you know which one is likely to score highest, but today it would be helpful for me to know which of the park projects that you all would like to see looked at. Now, this particular program, you can only have 2 open grants. We have 1 currently open, which is the Baghdad Millside project, so we can only apply for 1 in this cycle. And then just another note of importance, in the FERDAP cycle, we applied for Benny Russell and Navarre Park. Now, we can put in, one of those projects could be the project submitted for land and water, but we would have to inevitably withdraw one of those because you can't have a project funded in both. So my recommendation might be to just exclude Navarre Park and Benny Russell from this cycle unless it just scores really high, because then you kind of put it out there for 2 and see how either one goes. But a couple of notes, acquisition of land is going to be scored differently than development of an existing owned parcel. So for instance, one of the projects that may eventually move forward is some land acquisition for additional soccer facilities in Commissioner Lynchard's district. You know, if he's still interested in that, we would look at that acquisition project differently than development of Holly Ballpark. Also, if there's still land needed, I believe Fidelis was a project that in the past we talked about. I would caution with acquisition projects, they need to be, as far as for planning purposes, a little bit further down the road than just conceptual in nature, just because there's a lot of stuff to be done to develop an application. So if those are still, you know, conceptual, we may exclude those. But it would just be helpful for me to know today which ones you all would like me to look at, and then Tammy and I are going to meet later today, and then on Thursday I could come back to you and let you know which ones are likely to score the highest.
Commissioner Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheila, what's the timeline on the grant cycle? When would we know about any awards?
The projects will be prioritized this summer or fall, and then funding is contingent upon, federal funds being approved. But it would be my best guess that it could easily be the end of next year before a project could be started if approved.
The end of 16?
15,
15.
potentially early 16. Sometimes these things take a while.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Through the chair to Sheila. Ms. Harris, does the Baghdad Mill site qualify for any of this, or would it be, could we look at that? Or is it?
The Baghdad Mill site actually has an open land and water conservation fund grant. That's part of the funding that's, we're developing the park right now, and there is an open grant, so this one could not be applied for in this cycle.
Okay, thank you.
My recommendation would be that any commissioner who has a potential project submit that to Sheila. Let her score it, let her come back on Thursday, present those projects. Whichever one scores the highest, that would be the one that I would support. Commissioner Williamson, do you have any?
Just the Navarre Park project, I know that it has one in there, but when I was looking through the scoring criteria ahead of the meeting, it seems like it's applying for every single one of those, and the Holly Park might be one that, it's just going to have to be exclusively funded with rec funds because it won't score high enough. And looking at it just on the surface, it looks like the Navarre Park would definitely score higher because of the things you mentioned, on the water, and I'm not going to bore everyone by going through the list, but that's why I put those two down. I would imagine the Navarre Park's probably going to score higher than the Holly Park.
Yeah, I would imagine it would score well too, and I will certainly look at that one and bring that back as an option. But I just want to make sure that that it's clear that if we have a Navarre Park application in for both FERDAP and Land and Water Conservation, and should it get funded, through one or the other, we would have to withdraw one. You couldn't get both a FERDAP and Land and Water Conservation Fund, and so. Just if you're wanting to spread the wealth, another application may be best, but I do agree it will likely score high.
The one that we have in now is a $50,000 grant, and it's pretty limited because of that. This is a one-to-one match, and obviously from the rec fund budget, I have the proceeds and the willingness to match that up to $200,000.
Okay, so the action today is going to be for Sheila to compile a list of potential projects, score those lists through Mr. Walker, present them to us on Thursday, without objection.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to tell Sheila that I want to keep with the FERDAP grant for the Benny Russell Park, so I would not want you to waste the time of scoring it for this grant.
Okay, and then also, I know you had mentioned some Florida town improvements. That one, because it is a historical site, if I'm not mistaken, may also score well. So if that is something that you're interested in moving forward at this time, let me know and I'll score it as well.
If you'd like to score it, that would be good, and we can look. I know that Commissioner Williamson has some stuff down in Navarre that may score high that would be very beneficial to his district. So I don't want to take all the eggs in my cart.
Okay.
Move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Here, none, it passes. Number 6, discussion of declaration as surplus property, a 1997 Ford Explorer from the Engineering Department, as recommended by the Clerk of the Court. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is the background information from Mr. Burton with the Clerk Controller Office. Outlining the surplusing that particular piece of equipment. I believe they're going to go ahead and set it to auction. Mr. Spencer may have some thought on that, but we'd go ahead and declare this surplus and move forward with it.
I'm not sure the date that they're going to do this, but we've got the online auction now going on our surplus property. That there's a commission that's charged, but the commission is on top of what the purchase price is, so it doesn't cost the county any money on this auction process.
Okay, any other comments? We'll move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Here, none, it passes. Number 7, discussion of honoring former Animal Services Director Dominic Percini. We had this discussion a few months back. We asked staff to look into it. So, Mr. Walker?
We did, and I placed the minutes in the board had taken. I believe that was in the October-November meeting, and asked us to look at it. one of the recommendations that Mr. Gomillion had was the, as opposed to naming the entire facility for Mr. Persicini would be, given the fact that he was involved with the pet adoption program and identified with that he had recommended the Dominic Persicini kind of adoption lobby, the area where they do the actual adoption, to place as you've seen other places have done with a picture and a plaque, with that kind of designation, which seems like a good middle ground, if you will, as opposed to an entire facility.
Any comments? Okay, so what was that recommendation again, Mr. Walker?
Would just be the Dominic Persicini adoption lobby.
I would move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
And we may clean that up a little bit if we can think of something better.
Pardon?
Never mind.
Move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 8, discussion of waiver or permitting fees for construction of a residence for disabled veteran Daniel Palmer at 2344 10 Mile Road in Pace, and I will give y'all some background on this. Back in 2004, we had our first wounded, disabled, returning veteran. That was Dustin Tuller and his family. At that time, the community rallied together, raised enough money to build that disabled veteran a home with absolutely no cost. And at that time, we had a discussion about being able to waiver fees for all disabled veteran type homes. We said we would handle them each one case by case. The community, once again, is rallying to build Daniel Palmer and his family a home, and hopefully we'll be able to do it at no cost to that veteran. And at this time, I'm asking that we waiver any and all construction-related fees so that money can go toward the home and not other expenses. So.
And just to remind the board, I believe we did this about 6 months ago or some period of time ago. I can't recall, but there's a state statute that specifically allows a waiver of permit fees for disabled veterans. And I believe that's why Ms. Spencer and I put the wording the way we did.
Very good. Mr. Gomillion, any comments? I would move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. And I'd also like to give kudos to our local home builder, Blackie Black, who owns Baghdad Home Builders. He was a builder who spearheaded building the Dustin Tuller home at no cost, along with our entire committee. Blackie has stepped forward again to spearhead the building of the Palmer House. This will be Blackie's third disabled veteran home that he has spearheaded constructing. So I want to give kudos to Blackie Black and his Baghdad Home Builder Company. Scott.
Scott Camp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, 32563. Just real quick, I think it's an exceptional idea. I was just hoping we can get this in the press and maybe get a thing on the website that people can give donations to this to offset the cost. I know they did it this weekend for the 2 NYPD officers that were assassinated, paying off their homes. It was $800,000. Within 20 minutes after being on Fox News Saturday morning, they had raised $40,000 just literally within 20 minutes. So I think we can get the word out and get an easy place for folks that can, click a button on the county website to contribute. I bet we can roll this up in no time. Thank you, sirs.
I appreciate that. And some further information, the Santa Rosa Veterans Memorial Foundation, along with the Global War on Terror Committee in Pensacola, those 2 committees are helping create awareness and fundraising. Blackie's going to handle the building part of it. We will have a groundbreaking at 2344 10 Mile Road in actually Chumuckla on January the 16th at 10 a.m. And I would hope the media would help us promote that. I see hands in the back going up, thumbs. And I would encourage everyone to get involved in this wonderful project. We send our young men and women to war. Many of them don't come home. Many of them come back, loss of legs, arms, traumatic issues. This is the least we can do for them, is help them secure a home for their family for the rest of their lives. So I would encourage everyone to get involved in this. Thank you. I'll move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 9, information only, public hearing item scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Thursday, January the 8th, 2015, none. Number 10, Commissioner J.O. Williamson, District Parks, update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in August, we had approved, I wanted to come up with a District 1 Parks and Recreation Advisory Council. I just wanted to let everybody know that council is going to meet on the 4th Thursday at 4 p.m. at Benny Russell Park. There's a little room there that we can use. Tammy Simmons will be there, so county staff is there. I'll be there for a little bit of the meeting, but I don't want to control the meeting, so I'll leave and let them kind of hash it out. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up with all the parks in District 1, kind of prioritize some projects we've already got on slate, some projects that may be for the future, and say what's the best thing we need to do, what's the least important, and then I can kind of work that plan. I'm one of those that likes to have a plan and then go from there, and I want it to come from the citizens too. So those meetings are going to be open to public. We're going to have somebody elected as a secretary that will take minutes, and they will be recorded, so everything falls under open record laws. But I just wanted, I'm sure we'll have to advertise the meeting because it is open to public, but it's the 4th Thursday at 4 p.m. at Benny Russell Park. There's the restrooms, and across the hall is a little meeting room, and we're going to do that January, February, March, and January, February, March. I'm going to go ahead and say April, but we may not need that April meeting because I don't want it to be something we just do every month. I want to have a clear date of this is our final date, and then we can move along with working to help the parks in District 1. And I appreciate all of y'all supporting me starting this advisory council.
And this is for information only today. I will also ask my 2.5-year-old grandson to attend that meeting. He's probably too young to be secretary yet, but allow him to have input.
So I can imagine that I'm going to have to put a splash pad on that list of items if the 2.5-year-old grandson's going to be there.
All right, information only, moving to the engineer's report. Number 1, discussion of engineering services with Hatchmont McDonald in the amount of $76,720 for the Peter Prince Airport Runway Rehabilitation Project. Engineering services will be reimbursed under FAA grant. That's attachment A. Mr. Blaylock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a part of our capital improvement project and our ongoing grant that we apply for, Peter Prince is going to be eligible for about a $2 million rehab to our runway and taxiways. Part of the grant is we have to go out and we have to have the design approved, constructed, permitted, bid, and bids back before September 30, at which time we'd be eligible for an October 1 award with FAA. I might also mention that this is 90% FAA, 10% local match.
Very good. Any comments from the board? Public? Hearing none, I would move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 2, discussion of equipment lease for central landfill. See attachment B. Mr. Blaylock.
As noted in your backup in a memo from me to Mr. Walker, we are currently leasing 2 pieces of equipment at approximately $13,700 per month for the landfill. This is an off-road, articulated off-road dump truck and a dressing bulldozer. What we're asking to do is to go enter into a 48-month lease where we'll be able to lease an articulated dump truck, a bulldozer, and a front-end loader for $73.97 per month. At our current burn rate, that would recognize a $43,000 per year savings, and also move the major repair because under that four-year lease, that will be under warranty. Now, granted, we'll be responsible for all the wear items, the tracks, hoses, fluid changes, belts, those sorts of things, but major repairs would be under the manufacturer's warranties.
Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Number 3, discussion of approval of final plat for Cottonwood Phase 2, a 22-lot subdivision, a portion of Section 30, Township 2 North, Range 26 West, Santa Rosa County, Florida. It's in District 3, Attachment C. Mr. Blaylock.
Yes, this is Phase 2 of Cottonwood that's just off of Anderson Lane. This was one of those phased developments, and as we can see, the economy seems to be turning around, and people are converting partial developments into full developments and recording plats.
Any discussion? Hearing none, move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes. This time we'll go to the Public Services Committee. Commissioner J.R. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 items today. The first, under Development Services, recommend board approval to proceed with the following derelict property abatements: 5166 Aqua Vista Drive, Gulf Breeze; 4164 Fruitwood Street, Pace; 7037 Overman Street, Baghdad; 5708 Ridgeway Court, Milton; 8305 Segura Street, Navarre; and 8466 Sevilla Street, Navarre. Mr. Gomillion, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to say that this will be our normal process, Mr. Chairman, and of course, once we receive the bids, those will come back to the board for approval.
I'd like to move to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2, recommend approval of the mortgage subordination agreement for the property located at 6930 Dursey Lane in Milton. I'd like to move to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Under emergency management, we have recommend board approval of the domestic preparedness grant agreement with the Florida Department of Emergency Management in the amount of $16,000. There is no matching requirement. Mr. Gomillion, would you like to add anything to that?
Just that this is our grant that we've applied for a number of years and received about 10 years, and we use it for training and preparedness exercises.
I'd like to move to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Under Public Services, item number 4, Navarre Park restroom update. Mr. Gomillion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just proud to report that we're hopefully nearing completion of the Navarre Park restrooms. I've provided you with the information. If you recall, the board directed staff to work with the volunteer group, Mr. Dabney, to construct these restrooms. Based on what Mr. Dabney has indicated to me, the volunteer effort is going to kind of ramp up this week to try to complete those, the inside finish work of that park restrooms. I do have in here the basic budget information, the breakout for the different components of the facility, and you will see that I've noted and requested a $10,000 additional allocation to pay for the infrastructure that we need to complete the project. The sewer pump, the low quotes on those sewer pumps about, I believe, is around $10,000 just for that pump and control mechanism. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomillion. Do we have any questions from the board? I'd like to move to Thursday's agenda without objection. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just some comments on that. I appreciate everybody working together on this. I kind of got this thing started, and now with a new commissioner down there, I'm not sure where Rob's involved in this or how much he is, but just for clarification, we did approve $100,000 initially at that time for the construction of this. I don't believe at the time, there may be miscommunication, but the sidewalks, lift station, and connection estimates were really in the general scheme of things. It was build the building. Possibly should have had a little more discussion on that, but I think all in all, the facility that we're getting for the county and our citizens' usage at even the cost of $110,000 has been well worth the effort. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rob Williamson.
I inherited a few projects. This is one of them. I came on, and the main thing I was trying to get to was what was the cost of the project moving forward in a timeline of completion, so I can get an understanding of where we are. And Tony's done an excellent job of putting this together. I'd like to thank Jane for putting the information together on the Turtle Center, which is going to be coming up later in the Budget Committee. Those are the two main projects that were ongoing when I took office. And the question I would have for Mr. Gomillion is, moving forward, do you feel that there's a way that we can improve this process, or a way that we can have a more clearly defined scope of work. And my concern is that the additional money for this project, have these services already begun? In other words, the sidewalk I know has been poured. I've had several visits out there and spoken with Mr. Dabney, so I'm definitely involved in the project. Some of these I know we've already incurred costs, and my concern is that there's been additional cost above the budget that, and this may be a rules thing that I'm not aware of, that this board hasn't already approved. It almost seems like we're approving it after the fact. Could you maybe speak to some recommendations? I'm not worried about, what happened before. I'm just trying to get a sense of what we can do to improve it moving forward.
Sure. Well, I'll just answer the broad question first. In general, I think that yes, I think that we certainly would be well advised to have as a project as specified and as pinned down as we could have it. We started out, we took direction, and we have tried to facilitate this project as we thought best, and I think that's occurred. Certainly, at this point in time, we have not spent more than there's not been encumbered or spent more than $100,000 to answer that specific question. So I listed the infrastructure items in my outline just so that you understood what I was referring to as infrastructure. And yes, the sidewalk work has been completed. But we have, to answer the specific question, we have not encumbered or spent more than the 110. It will take spending that to make the bathrooms functional. In other words, we have not purchased the pumps, and there's other work yet to be done that to make the bathroom functional. Obviously, it's got to be connected to the sewer.
What's the understanding of where this additional revenue would come from to pay for the overage?
I don't have an understanding. I mean, that would be a question for the board to answer.
County Administrator?
Two sources would be either the District 4 Recreation Funds, which was the source of the original $100,000. The other is just from the general fund. We currently have several porta potties that are under contract that we'll no longer need once the restroom's functional. So I think you could justify doing this out of the general fund, and we're paying an operating expense that will go away when the restrooms are functional. There's obviously no need for portalets with the restrooms.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any kind of procedure or any policy in place for projects where the community everybody gets so excited about these community projects, as they should, because it's generally something that's very needed in that community. But it gets a little gung-ho, things get rushed through, and we're lucky that it's only $10,000. I mean, it could come back, it was $150,000. Is there a procedure or a policy or something that we can do so we're not, next year coming into another case where the community rallies together, wants to do something, and then they don't budget properly, or we don't budget properly for that?
Mr. Walker and I have talked about that, and so I think probably he has some information. I think there are some ideas about how we might want to set forth a template for what the community could expect if they had a project such as this, of the type of information the board would want before they considered it, and maybe then after the fact some documents to help pin down what we're talking about doing. So yes, I think pre and after, there are probably some things that we might want to consider doing, but Mr. Walker might have some thoughts on that.
Just a couple of points is I think that Mr. Gomez and his staff did a yeoman's job in kind of managing this, because there's an awful lot of excitement. There's an awful lot of moving forward, awful lot of momentum. You've got volunteers that want to get it done. I think Mr. Gomez and his staff did a good job of making sure that they went through a process that was reasonably orderly in doing that. And I think going forward, he and I have already exchanged some ideas on how we need to be more specific in the project management of this, because, I mean, we're responsible for how it turns out at the end of the day. And so in the future, we will need some kind, we need some kind of an agreement. We need to always be sure if there's a design professional that you can have involved in it, if there's a contractor in these particular projects, they're helpful. And the next time we do one of these, we're going to come back to you and just have to kind of, as Ms. Jones used to say, we just kind of need to whoa up and look at it. But point of fact is, we've probably got a project that's probably restrooms and of this size I mean, I suspect that a building like that's probably close to $200,000 in value. We would have spent that had it not been for the volunteers and the help we got. So I mean, we got the benefit for the amount of money that we put in it. It's just we need to be a little more systematic, and we need to slow folks down maybe a little more intentionally in that particular regard.
And I can't speak for the other Commissioner Williamson, but I know my concerns are not at all directed at Mr. Gomillion's staff, because they did a great job. It was kind of like herding cats on this one, I think. But a policy in place it may be good for us to go look at that, so one of these doesn't come back and bite us big time. I mean, $10,000 we can handle. If it was $75,000, Rob would be over there scratching his head about his funds or his park funds. So it's something we really need to look at, having something in place so we have a plan to work with.
And I would just say this, I do not recall a project that I know of this magnitude where we had that many volunteers. So I think this is a first of this magnitude. So it would be a great time to put together some type of procedure on this now. So, yes, ma'am.
Laurie Gallup, 1869 Flamingo Lane in Navarre. This is not the first time that this has happened. We're also seeing the same thing at the Turtle Center. When you have volunteers involved, you've got to have somebody really overseeing the project. You needed a project manager, and you needed the proper specifications so that we knew exactly what we're going into. We really don't know that we're going to be able to finish this thing up at $110,000. I mean, it'll be something else the next time we meet. I have a question in that the location of the restrooms, they were located where they were located, supposedly, because of the infrastructure and our access to the sewer system. So now we need another $10,000 to be able to tap in and get a lift station for the sewer. This doesn't seem right to me. The restrooms should have been located closer to where the children are and where the children play if we were going to have to put $10,000 more into infrastructure for sewer, not so close to the restaurant that Mr. Dabney owns. The children need access to those restrooms, and it would have been far better had the restrooms been located where children actually play. So that's my first question about that. I'm really concerned about why it was located where it was, because it was supposedly to save us money on sewer.
Mr. Chairman. No, I get it.
Bob?
The restrooms are located where they are because it's the highest location, elevation-wise, on that piece of property that we had. And anywhere that you put the restrooms, you're going to have a connection fee and a cost to connect.
So if we're going to have a lift station anyway, then it could have been located toward where the children actually are.
But then you would have built the restrooms in a lower elevation, and correct me if I'm wrong, then they would have had to been on pilings. Mr. Committee?
Well, it wouldn't have particularly had to been. It wouldn't have been insurable, and the ADA would have been an issue the access would have been an issue if it was not built on grade. So that was one of the other.
Well, I believe the project was rushed, and it should have been specified much better so that we wouldn't have these surprises. Everyone knows a building has to have sewer. Also, as far as where the additional money is going to come from, we had restrooms there in that park. They were destroyed by Hurricane Ivan. I'm going to assume that the county got some kind of FEMA reimbursement for it. I don't know where that money went, but I'm going to assume it was the general fund. So this additional $10,000 should not come out of the recreation funds for Navarre. It needs to come out of the general fund.
Mr. Gomoon, from what you stated, $100,000 was the money at a max from the county. There's not been over $100 spent from the county itself. We paid for the materials, and then they were getting other things donated. Is that correct, or did I not hear that correctly?
Yeah, well, the way the project from the outset is the volunteers requested the $100,000 budget for the materials. That's correct. And then of course, they thought that most of the services would be donated, and that is accurate. That is the case with few exceptions. My statements were that we have not spent over $100,000. We have not encumbered or spent over $100,000 at this time. In order, the sewer pumps themselves are about $10,000, that and the control panel. And so that one item would tip us over.
Okay, so to have a functional restroom, we would have to spend that $10,000 extra. Are we firm that $10,000 is what it is? We're not going to come back at the next meeting and say that it was an extra $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000?
Well, that's based on the information I know at this time. The only thing, the other materials are purchased that I'm aware of. The tile is being completed. The fixtures have not been installed. They have been purchased. The partition walls have been purchased or encumbered. I won't say they've been purchased. Those things have been encumbered. So there are not a lot of other items out there there are no large dollar type things out there. If there's some light fixture or something that gets broken in the installation process, we have to go buy another, or something that happens in a finish up of a job. I would say it should be very minor based on what I know today.
To the county administrator, I guess the best thing, if we move this to Thursday, we find out between now and Thursday where that fund, that extra $10,000 is going to come from?
Yes, and we can do that. And again, absent it coming from the District 4 recreation funds, we would just take it out of the reserve contingencies.
Mr. Chairman, I want us to be very careful about all the other projects that's been built in the past. They've come from the recreational funds, so I'd hate to see us deviate from that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Even though it will cost District 4 funding, I understand your comments, and I tend to agree with Commissioner Salter because that has been the practice in the past. I want to make sure that I say thank you to the community partners that were part of this project. It certainly would not have been done without all of their tireless efforts and volunteer efforts to get it done. And it has been kind of a rallying cry for the Navarre community. And it's been an opportunity for the community to show some spirit and some togetherness. And for that reason, it's been neat to see this project come about. But as I've heard said at this dais before, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the tax holders and taxpayers of Santa Rosa County. And because of that, I want to make sure that we have a clearly defined scope of work if we're going to be allocating taxpayers' dollars moving forward. And, different leadership makes different decisions. I'm not going to speak about, decisions that were made before I took the oath, but, I think we're going to find out that where the restrooms were put is actually going to be a good decision because it will enable us some flexibility to do things in Navarre Park on a larger scale than maybe they've been done in the past and improve that park on a larger scale. But I'll feel a lot more comfortable about this project when I know exactly how much it's going to cost and when it's going to be completed. And for future projects, those are the benchmarks that I'll be looking for, the metrics that I'll be looking for to be met, a clearly defined scope of work, and that way, if we have overages like this, we'll know about them. It won't be so much of a last-minute type of thing. That's what gave me heartburn about this project. But it's great that the community decided to come together and get it done. And Tony, thank you for your hard work on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. So I think the county administrator and Tony, and this is part of my committee, maybe we can come up with some type of clear policy in place and see what others have done so we don't have this happen in the future. This was not the first time this has probably ever happened, but it was one of the larger ones, like Commissioner Salter said. But does anybody have any other comments? Do you have any?
Now, I'd just like to point out that in planning a restroom, you should start with the sewer, because that's the purpose of a restroom. So I just don't understand why we didn't have the proper specifications to even get started, because you start with your infrastructure. It's really nice that we've got a pretty building, but if you can't transport the wastes, what's the point?
There's enough blame to go around. We just want to try to figure out what we can do to make it better in the future.
Again, I think.
Well, in the future, I really thought that our county had specifications, that we specified things that are going to go into our parks and into our county property that we own. And if we don't do that, then we need to start doing that immediately. I'm really shocked that that's not what we have.
And I don't know why the lift pump was left off or anything like that. Mr. Gomillion, do you have any insight of why or how?
Well, if you look at my original memo, which is included in the backup, you'll see that I indicated in that memo that the county would provide a site plan and other infrastructure. At the time that we were given direction to move forward with working with the volunteers, we didn't have all that put together. And quite frankly, we didn't have all the specifications that the volunteers had decided upon. So we didn't have a clear understanding completely of every component's cost. And up until recently, there's still some probability that we'll come in just over 100. I'm not sure that the 110 is going to take all that. But I don't want to, like you say, I don't want to come back nickel and diming if there's some other little thing. So we'll come back to you with a completed report, hopefully by the 1st of February, about the actual. But my point is, if you look back at the original memorandum that I supplied to you after the board directed us on a Monday to get with the volunteers about this project, we indicated in there that the county would handle the site plan. I mean, there's an assumption. I understand what Ms. Gallups is saying, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think there's an assumption. Obviously, you're going to tie into the sewer. Now, the volunteers, whether they had that concept or not, I'm not sure. And yes, and so I think what it does, it sums up what you ask, and what we've indicated that Mr. Walker and I will work on is that I think there does need to be a template, a process for projects like this, and then you get it all up. You get a complete project on the front end. If there's a change order, then that comes back to the board, as it typically would come back to the board in a contractual agreement.
So that $10,000 does give us wiggle room. It's not a low estimate. I mean, you feel like comfortable within that?
I just don't know anything else that would be a big dollar item that's out there that I'm unaware of. Again, I'm not running the project on site. The volunteers are doing that. So, but all the large dollar items have been encumbered, or we know the numbers. So I don't know anything else that it could be.
Thank you, Mr. Gomillion. Ms. Gallups, do you have any other comments?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully one last time. Scott Kemp, 5525 Hummingbird Court, Gulf Breeze, 32563. Hey, let's just don't lose sight, like Commissioner Rob Williamson was saying. These are good projects. These are things that would not have got done. If the District 4 Commissioner would have been stuck with a $200,000 bathroom like we'd been dealing with for the last, since Ivan, it wouldn't have got done. So, for the Mr. Dabneys out there, and I wish I could remember the lady's name that took the lead out on the ballpark and Holly. These people are putting it out there. When we should, go and ask for them to be doing projects. As, the county administrator stated, this would have been a $200,000 project. So what? We spend $110,000. The thing is, we got to have bathrooms. The thing is, we got to have ballparks. The thing is, we got to have infrastructure. Sure. Did we probably miss the ball a little bit on this one, being one of the first ones out of the gate? Sure. Like Commissioner Jared Williams was saying, we learn from it. We move forward. But this don't stifle, and this don't walk away from this meeting in any way thinking anybody watching or anybody reading the news that, there was any dissension about moving forward on future projects, because I believe this is the lifeblood of our community. Waiting for money to come from Uncle, as we know, is gone. So, this, please go and encourage, set a process, and like you say, you have a project manager, be it on a county side or be it on a, civilian side, whatever. But let's just move forward positively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. And I think we covered a lot of bases, and this will be a learning process. This was the first one that I've gone through as a commissioner, so I'll be able to take some information as we move forward. With everything that's been said, I would like to move to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report for Public Services Committee.
Thank you. And Scott, I do agree. Every day is a learning opportunity. If you don't take advantage of it, you didn't learn anything. All right, Public Works Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of portable restroom rental services for the Parks Department from Pot of Gold Rentals is a low proposed based on comparison shopping. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
I do have a question on that, though. When we do open this and no longer need this, are we under any kind of annual contract for so many units, or are we allowed to adjust that as necessary?
We can adjust as necessary. It's a per unit. It's a per unit price.
Oh, thank you. All right. Item number 2 is discussion of scheduling a public hearing on the proposed vacation of that portion of Martin Street as depicted on the plat of Florida Town Heights as recorded in the Plat Book A on page 23, lying north of U.S. Highway 90. Any questions from members of the board on that proposed vacation? Mr. Whitfield normally goes over all these, and has any problems with it, he brings that to the board. So hearing none, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes Public Works Committee report.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. At this time, we'll go to Budget Financial Management Committee, Commissioner Rob Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman Salter. We have 10 items today. Number 1, discussion of bids received for the advertisement of the delinquent tax lists. Low bidder meeting specifications is the Santa Rosa Press Gazette with a bid of $10.05 per line. I ask that be moved to Thursday without objection.
10.5 cents.
10.5 cents per line. Thank you for the correction. I apologize. With a bid of 10.5 cents per line. Move that to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That would be some expensive advertisement. Item number 2, discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-83 in the amount of $60,000 to carry forward funds in the general fund for advocacy and lobbying services with Johnson & Blanton LLC is approved at the December 11th, 2014 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 3, discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-84 in the amount of $200,000 to recognize 2014-2015 Defense Infrastructure Grant to purchase land or secure easements around Whiting Field as identified in the joint land use study agreement approved at the December 11th, 2014 regular meeting. Request this be moved to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 4, discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-85 in the amount of $27,631 to authorize new award in the amount of $50,000 less previously rolled over but unspent budget authorization in the amount of $22,369 for the 2014-15 DRG grant for the period November 13th, 2014 through contract end June 30th, 2015. Request this be moved to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 5, discussion of Budget Amendment 2015-86 in the amount of $3,227 to transfer funds from the Capital Fund to the Planning and Zoning Department and the General Fund for a copier scanner printer as approved at the November 13th, 2014 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Recommend moving to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 6, discussion of budget amendment 2015-87 in the amount of $20,899 to return prior year excess fees that are required to pay clerk leave payouts for retiring drop employee in the general fund. Request this be moved to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 7, discussion of budget amendment 2015-88 in the amount of $3,000 to carry forward funds for the Jay Public Library from a $3,000 donation from the Curtis Finlay Foundation in the general fund. Request that this be moved to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 8, discussion of budget amendment 2015-89 in the amount of $212,505 to carry forward account balances from grants received from the Tourist Development Council to the Navarre Beach Marine Science Center, the Navarre Beach Sea Turtle Conservation Center, and the Marine Sanctuary in the Tourist Development Fund. Excuse me. This was funding, just as an aside, that was previously approved. There is certain monies from the Tourist Development Fund. I've got a clear report from Ms. Bell on the breakdown of a portion of that. I'm still waiting to receive clarification on a $60,000 portion from the TDC on what exactly was the scope of work of that. And I anticipate having that by the next set of meetings.
Very good.
I would ask that item number 8 be moved to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 9, discussion of budget amendment 2015-90 in the amount of $41,308 to establish a budget for Florida Defense Support Task Force grant funding for the purpose of clearing and cleaning up the car wash property owned by the county adjacent to NAS Whiting Field main entrance and installing a fence per the FDSTF agreement. Request item 9 be moved to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, a discussion of county expenditures, check register. Any discussion? That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. We are at the end of the meeting. Any other comments, issues from the board, staff? We'll go to public forum. Anyone from the public wish to address the board? Going once, going twice. We adjourn.